Greetings and welcome to an LGR thing. I did not plan on recording today, but I'm actually really happy to do so because The Sims 1 and 2 have been re-released officially as a celebration of the 25th birthday of The Sims franchise. Yeah, a quarter century is how long this series has been going, and while The Sims 4 has soured me on the series somewhat as someone who has played all the Sims iterations for those 25 years, I still really genuinely enjoy going back and playing the first couple of games, but I almost never do so on a modern system. I always stick to my old hardware, not only because I really enjoy doing that, but also because it is absolute pain in every vulnerable body part to get these games working fully, properly, and smoothly and everything on a modern Windows PC. It's possible, but my goodness, are there a lot of hoops to jump through, especially for the second game. Like, I was trying to put together a 20th anniversary retrospective before the whole hurricane situation ruined those plans. But yeah, anyway, I was really shocked at how much it actually takes to get The Sims 2 fully working properly as it did not only back in the day, but just even smoothly or reliably at all on every modern system I've tried. And in that sense alone, seeing these Sims 1 and 2 re-releases coming out with fixes in place to get them working just straight away, it's an absolute godsend. I really love seeing that these things are working as well as they are most of the time. Like, I've installed them on multiple computers now, including my Steam Deck, and then a little mini PC thingy, and my previous Threadripper editing rig, and just anything that I can try. And in all cases so far, the games start up and work pretty much every time. There are absolutely some caveats. These are not perfect releases. We will get to the problems, but let's just start with what we've got here, okay? These are The Sims 1 and 2 completely expanded, more or less, and being sold through the EA app, the Epic Games Store, and Steam, with Steam being my choice for this video, and being sold for $40 together, at least when bundled, which is the price of a single Sims 4 expansion pack, which I know isn't an apples to apples comparison, but I can't help but make that comparison in terms of the amount of content that you're getting, especially considering that these games have not been sold on digital storefronts. At least the first one, Sims 2, has been available digitally in different ways before, mainly the Ultimate Collection, which existed only by request for a limited time, free to previous owners, I think, of The Sims 2, and only on Origin. There's so many weird asterisks beside that release, and of course there's the Mac version, but that wasn't complete. Anyway, this is not that. This is a completely different set of executables and releases for both The Sims 1 and 2. There really are a slew of underlying changes here, and while the Sims team is rather vague in their description, you can see this technical overview by Repairy Perry on GitHub if you'd like to see much more details of all the stuff that's changed and been patched and updated, including probably the most notable thing being that it now runs using the Vulkan API for its renderer, meaning everything on screen is now GPU accelerated. Though that's all under the hood, the main appeal here is being able to run them as easily as possible without having to do all of that patching and downloading and applying fan-made mods and fixes, of which there were dozens for each game, and it always changed depending on the setup that you were running on. Well, not anymore, in theory. You just install them, and the result is that you get as close to the original simming experience for those first two games on a modern rig with support for higher resolutions and widescreen and things like that built in. And they absolutely have fixed up each release compared to those original disc releases, but the end result is that they end up running more or less how you could if you were to take the original retail discs and then crack it and patch it and mod it and stuff. They've just done all of that legwork ahead of time, and that's about it. They're not remakes, they're not really remasters or HD texture upgrades or anything like that. They've left the games almost completely intact. They are authentic, arguably to a fault, actually, but overall I'm happy with them when they're stable, and I think most people would be, so long as you're expecting a straightforward re-release here, not a full remaster with a ton of updates. It is very much an old school experience for better and worse, including so many bugs. But yeah, let's take a bit of a closer look at each of the games individually. So we're going to start with the first one, and with The Sims 1 here, it does cost $20 on its own, but like I said, you can bundle these to bring down the price of both of them, which for some reason they also bundle in some Sims 4 stuff, which I don't care about, but it's there anyway, so just kind of foisted on you. This did lead to some confusion early on about these releases having de novo DRM added and requiring an EA account and online sign-ins. Well, as far as I can tell, that was not meant to be there. These Steam versions do not require an EA account to sign into and play, and the only DRM I'm noticing is the basic Steam stuff, and that is easily bypassed if you know where to look. And of course, the old secure ROM and whatever other disk copy protection that they used to have on retail is gone. You may also notice a significant bump to the system requirements for both games compared to what they used to be, and I think a lot of it comes down to its use of the Vulkan API, and that's why the GPUs are listed as they are, since those are the minimum that support Vulkan, combined with the other changes needing the newer operating system and processor, more RAM and all that. But about the only thing here that is blatantly wrong is the hard drive space. Like, this is The Sims 1 here, says it requires 17 gigs, but it really only needs a little over 2. And though the GPUs listed are pretty basic, it certainly doesn't hurt to have as much horsepower as possible if you're planning on running it at far higher resolutions than the games were originally intended to play in. And you can do that. In fact, both games will start up in whatever your desktop resolution is set to, which can cause some issues with each game. So The Sims 1 here, I'm starting it up on a desktop that is at 4K, 3840 by 2160. Note that the 2D map screen does not change from 4:3 aspect ratio at all here, but it is running in higher res, as is noticed once you get into the actual gameplay, and it looks wonderful in terms of the high resolution sim models and whatnot, but the performance is garbage. And I've tried this on different systems. Every time I run it at 4K native, it is stuttery as balls and just runs terribly. Now, this is something you can fix by just changing your desktop resolution to something like 1920 by 1080, but while that addresses the performance, now you run into a different problem. The game no longer lets you zoom in as much as you should be able to. To make it more obvious, here is as close as it lets you zoom on these two resolutions, and yeah, you can see 1080p just doesn't do it right. There's also some UI scaling weirdness. It doesn't really scale how I would hope that it would, and there's no way to change the UI to a custom scale, at least not in full screen. You can do some by pressing Alt-Enter to get different windowed modes, but that's only on certain resolutions, and again, you're pretty limited. And I don't like this kind of windowed mode. I'd prefer borderless. So next thing I tried was taking it down to 1280 by 720, and that performed and looked way better, despite the lower resolution. But you know what, for the original Sims, it's perfectly fine in my opinion. Plus the UI is more as it should be. This is pretty ideal, but I wasn't really fully satisfied with this either, so I thought, okay, what about in between, taking it up to 2560 by 1440? Oh, and by the way, the OS scaling doesn't make a difference for me at all. It really just depends on the native resolution here. But yeah, once I took it to 1440p, right here I think is the sweet spot, because you don't get those crazy performance issues that you do at 4K, but it also doesn't have the scaling and zooming in problem that 1080p has. So yeah, 1440p, at least for me, seems to be the way to go for The Sims 1. I just wish it wasn't so much of a pain to figure this out. There are no real options to choose at all. In the game itself, you can choose the basic shadows, lighting, and effects and detail for terrain, and that's about it. Other than messing around with console commands or configuration files, it really wants just your desktop resolution to determine how it's going to run, and you're not going to get borderless windowed no matter what, as far as I can tell. So again, it really is like using one of the fan-made widescreen patches and some other things to get it running smoothly on a modern OS. Again, if what you want to do is just play the game pretty close to the original, but with some modern updates to make it more playable, then here it is. And as far as I can tell, none of the content has been cut in terms of objects or music or celebrity cameos and things like that. And all of the expansions are included, which is great despite some of the technical issues. Just the fact that it's available for sale again, I think is wonderful. EA has been leaving money on the table for this classic game not being available, and people have just been pirating it for years and years and years, just trying to keep it preserved. And here it is. It's available for sale again, and on the face of it, I say that that's a good thing, just in terms of having the game available and having a convenient option without having to do all the patching yourself. I don't know. I just fucking love this game, and I'm so tired of the modern shit that maybe I'm easy to please, but The Sims 1 is awesome, and I just love to see it. Although that love has its limits, because man, the number of crashes is really unfortunate. The longer you play, the more unstable it tends to be. Particularly when going between one neighborhood to another, or to one of the different towns or special areas added in the expansions, that tends to be like a 50-50 chance to crash the game for me. So while I've had fun with it and I appreciate it for what it is, it's really unfortunate that it's such an issue in this particular version here on launch. Well, alright then, what about The Sims 2 Legacy Collection? As with The Sims 1, it is available at a discount if you buy them both together, but on its own, this one costs $30. But keep in mind, unless you just get really lucky and find a crazy used bundle somewhere, you're probably going to be paying more than that for all of the individual packs and expansions that this comes with. And it comes with all of them except for the IKEA Home Stuff Pack. Presumably a licensing issue, although the H&M Stuff Pack is still included, so they did retain some licenses. And whatever, there is already a fix for this. Within a day, this project went up on GitHub. There's a link in the description below, and you can add the IKEA Stuff Pack back to The Sims 2. Anyway, yeah, what you get here is effectively the same thing as The Sims 1 was in terms of it just being an updated, fixed version of the game with the same-ish content as the previous big collection, which in The Sims 2's case was called the Complete Collection on Origin. It's basically the exact same thing as that, but fixed up to simply work straight away without a hassle if things go well. And this is actually a big deal for The Sims 2, more so than The Sims 1. Ever since the Windows 7 era, it has taken tons of patches to get this game working and looking and running properly, and this release here, at least in my experience, is doing that very well right off the bat. And I also didn't run into the same weird resolution performance issues that I did with The Sims 1 re-release. So yeah, this is just awesome to see. As a huge fan of The Sims 2, it might be my favorite of the series. I go back and forth. But yeah, every time people ask, what is your favorite of the series and can I play it? And I say The Sims 2, and then I have to recommend this long, gigantic laundry list of crazy fixes and patches, and there's no guarantee that that stuff would even work. And what you have to do completely changes depending on the system you have, your processor, your RAM, your graphics card, but here almost all of that has been taken out of the equation. Again, at least in my experience. I mean, the fact that I can just straight up download The Sims 2 on Steam and have it run on a Steam Deck without having to do anything is fantastic. I genuinely never thought I would see this happen. And again, you get all of the stuff that you would want from a fully expanded Sims 2, except for the IKEA Home stuff, of course, unless you add it back, and most of the music, as far as I can tell. Because The Sims 2 did this thing where they added tons of music from real-life artists recorded in Simlish, doing special versions of their songs. There may be some missing due to licensing, but I couldn't tell you which. Katy Perry is still in here, and that's enough for me. I kinda joke, but no, I'm genuinely glad all the Simlish covers that I remember are all still here. So alright, you get most of the content, you can add the missing stuff back, it's in widescreen, it performs well, you can get these high resolutions, and everything is pretty much as you would expect. So what's the catch? Well, crashes, absolutely. I mean, this game was held together by toothpicks and duct tape and positive thinking anyways. Even in the best of circumstances on original hardware and everything is going perfectly well, this game is full of bugs, and all of them are intact, I think. Some getting random crashes to desktop like every time I've tried to create a sim. Other times it's pretty random or it's some kind of graphical driver error or something, and I've tried this on Intel, AMD, and Nvidia chips, and it just kind of crashes whenever it wants to on all of them. Though oddly enough, the one that I've had the most success with is the Steam Deck, which I don't know what's going on there, but it's been a good experience on that. Although it is worth noting, by the way, that these are not optimized in any way for the Steam Deck in terms of the actual device itself or the controller layout or any controllers for that matter. I'm just using community layouts for the controller where you got the touchpad moving around like the mouse, and the triggers, mouse buttons, and other things are mapped. The community does a good job with that on Steam Deck, but EA did nothing at all. These legacy releases do not support controllers natively. Oh yeah, and the mods. Mods still work for both The Sims 2 and The Sims 1. Now, there's no guarantee they'll work perfectly. This is a new version of the game, but the mods that I've tried, they work. But yeah, that pretty much brings me to the end here, at least for how things are on launch. The Sims 1 and 2 Legacy Collections are something that I really am glad to see. Like, I'm genuinely excited to have these games out there and you can just go and grab them again fully legit, and they work pretty much straight away in a modern system. Though, if I'm honest with myself, it's kind of like having been starving for years and then you're just super grateful for the half-baked table scraps. Like, it's nourishing, but it's also lacking, to say the least. It's mostly the crashes for me. I just can't get fully immersed in the games when they're crashing so often. And again, the originals, they're crashy, buggy glitch fests as well. They always have been, but I'm more forgiving when the release you're working with is like 20 years old and I've already owned these things for decades, so I don't have to pay a bunch of extra. You know, it's just the fact that you have to pay another $40 to $50 depending on the bundle or whatever to get this experience. It makes it pretty hard to recommend, at least right now. I'm so mixed on this. You know, I love the convenience. I like seeing it on a digital storefront. The ease of access and compatibility fixes are great, but you're still getting the same decades-old bugs and glitches plus new ones. Not to mention features that you would just want to see in a modern re-release, even if it's as basic as this, like maybe a borderless windowed mode, some Steam cloud saves. You don't get that. You don't get achievements. You don't get custom UI scaling. You're just stuck with whatever it gives you. And you don't get anything other than the PC release. There's no Mac version. The only reason it works on Steam Deck is because Linux and Proton is awesome. But at the same time, at least these are out there now, and maybe we'll continue to get updates and patches and fixes and things if EA commits to doing that. You never know with re-releases like this, but I really hope to see that because I would love to see these fully fixed up and become the best possible versions of these first two games that they can be. They deserve it, and you'd think a company with a $32 billion market cap could make it happen. But at full price in their current condition, I don't necessarily think that I'd recommend going out and getting them. If you do, make sure you're familiar with the refund policy of whatever storefront you're getting it on, because there's a good chance you might want to use it if you're running into as many problems as many simmers are at the moment. Anyway, that's all for this episode of LGR. And yes, for those asking, I do still plan to cover the Life and Death pack for The Sims 4, but the PC that I captured and ran those on for reviews, I no longer have due to the storm destroying it, so I need to build another gaming computer first, but we'll get there. And in the meantime, I've always got other stuff going up here on the channel, so I hope you stick around. And as always, thanks for watching.